The spotlight hit Maya Johnson like a spotlight from heaven, but the registration table felt more like a courtroom. She was 12 years old, soaking wet from the spring rain, carrying a battered guitar case that looked like it had survived 3 wars. Her sneakers squeaked against the polished marble floor of the Riverside Performing Arts Center, leaving wet footprints that made the other contestants' parents pull their children closer. The national talent competition had drawn kids from every state, but none of them looked like they'd just walked through a storm to get here. Behind the registration desk sat Victoria Reeves, head judge and former Broadway producer, a woman whose smile could freeze water. Her pearl necklace probably cost more than Maya's entire apartment building. She looked at Maya the way you'd look at a stray dog that wandered into a 5-star restaurant. The other kids wore designer clothes and had parents hovering with bottled water and encouragement. Maya had a plastic grocery bag with her entry fee inside, counted out in wrinkled bills and quarters from street performances. Name? Victoria's voice was sharp, clinical. Maya tried to keep her voice steady. Maya Johnson. I registered online 3 weeks ago. Victoria's manicured fingers clicked across her tablet, each tap sounding like a small judgment. I see your registration, but there's a processing issue. Your payment method was declined. You'll need to pay the $200 entry fee in cash right now, or I'm afraid you can't participate. Maya reached into the plastic bag. She pulled out the money she'd been collecting for 6 months, performing on street corners and subway stations, anywhere people would listen. The bills were sorted by denomination, held together with rubber bands. The coins were in a Ziploc bag, already counted. Exactly $200. Victoria stared at the money like Maya had just dumped trash on her desk. I can't accept this, Victoria said, her voice dripping with disgust. It's unsanitary. We have standards here. The lobby went quiet. Other families turned to watch. Maya felt her face burn with shame, but she didn't look away. It's legal tender. I counted it 3 times, $200 exactly. Victoria pushed the money toward the edge of the desk like it might contaminate her. I said we don't accept cash in this condition. Perhaps you should try again next year when you're more prepared. That's when the voice cut through the room like a knife through silk. Since when do we judge musicians by the cleanliness of their money? Everyone turned. A man stood near the entrance, rain dripping from his dark coat. He was tall, mid-30s, with the kind of presence that made people straighten their spines. Marcus Cole, legendary producer, guest judge, the man who discovered 3 Grammy winners before they turned 18. He crossed the lobby in long strides, his shoes clicking against the marble like a countdown. Victoria's face went pale. Mr. Cole, I was simply following protocol regarding cash handling procedures. Marcus stopped at the registration desk and looked directly at the money Maya had laid out. He picked up one of the rubber-banded stacks of bills and held it up to the light. I see money that was earned, not handed over by wealthy parents. I see sacrifice. I see hunger. Those are the only qualifications that matter here. He turned to Victoria, his voice dropping to something cold and final. Count it. All of it. If it's $200, you accept it. That's not protocol. That's basic human decency. The lobby was dead silent. Victoria's hand trembled as she reached for the money. She counted every bill, every coin, her face getting redder with each dollar. When she finished, she looked like she'd swallowed glass. $200, exact. Marcus nodded. then stamp her form and give her a contestant number. Now, Victoria stamped the registration form so hard the paper nearly tore. She slid it across the desk along with the number card, number 47. Maya took them with shaking hands, still not quite believing what had just happened. Marcus looked at her for the first time, really looked at her, and something flickered in his eyes. Recognition? Confusion? Maya couldn't tell. "You're in," he said quietly. "Preliminary round is tomorrow at 2. Don't be late." Maya found her voice. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Marcus studied her face for another moment, his expression unreadable. Then he turned and walked toward the judge's preparation room, his coat swaying behind him. Maya stood there, clutching her registration form, her heart hammering so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She'd made it past the first barrier, but she had no idea she'd just met the man who'd walked out on her mother 13 years ago. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and broken dreams. Maya sat in the plastic chair beside her mother's bed, the same chair she'd slept in more nights than she could count. Kaisha Johnson looked smaller than she had yesterday, like she was slowly fading into the white sheets. The cancer was winning. The bills on the bedside table confirmed it. $63,000 in red ink. The surgery that could save her life cost $40,000 more. Maya had done the math 100 times. First place in the competition paid $50,000. Exactly enough to cover the surgery with some left over for recovery care. She'd practiced for 6 months, 12 hours a day, until her fingers bled and her voice went raw. She'd learned to sing through pain, through exhaustion, through the fear that clawed at her throat every time she looked at her mother's chart. "Baby girl," Kaisha whispered, her voice thin as paper. "You made it through registration?" Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Kaisha smiled, and for a moment she looked like the vibrant woman who used to sing Maya to sleep. "I knew you would. You got my voice and your father's determination. Dangerous combination." Maya rarely asked about her father. The story was always the same. Young musician, big dreams, walked away when he found out Kaisha was pregnant. Left behind nothing but a guitar and a hole in their lives. Kaisha had never said his name. Said it didn't matter because he'd made his choice. But sometimes, late at night, Maya wondered what it would be like to have a father who stayed. "You need to rest, Mama," Maya said, standing up. "I have to practice. Tomorrow's the preliminary round." Kaisha grabbed her hand with surprising strength. "Sing like your life depends on it, because mine does." Maya kissed her mother's forehead and left before the tears could fall. She had 24 hours to prepare, 24 hours to perfect the song she'd written for this moment, 24 hours to transform pain into power. The preliminary round was chaos. 47 contestants, all desperate, all talented, all competing for 12 spots in the finals. Maya watched from backstage as kid after kid performed, some brilliant, some mediocre, all terrified. When number 46 finished his pitch-perfect cover of a top 40 hit, Maya knew she couldn't play it safe. She had to take a risk. "Number 47, you're up." Maya walked onto the stage carrying her battered guitar. The auditorium held 500 people, but all she could see were the judges at the table in front. Victoria sat in the center, her face a mask of professional neutrality. Marcus sat at the far right, his expression unreadable. The other judges looked bored, ready to be impressed or dismiss her in 30 seconds. Maya adjusted the microphone. My name is Maya Johnson. This is an original song called Still Standing. She started playing before anyone could stop her. The guitar was out of tune by professional standards, but Maya had learned to make imperfections sound intentional. The opening chords were raw, jagged, the kind of sound that made people pay attention whether they wanted to or not. And she started singing. Her voice was different from the other contestants. It wasn't technically perfect. It was something better. It was honest. She sang about fighting battles nobody could see, about holding on when letting go would be easier, about loving someone enough to bleed for them. She sang about her mother. The room went silent in a way that had nothing to do with politeness. Marcus sat forward in his chair, his pen frozen above his scorecard. His eyes were locked on Maya's face, watching the way she closed her eyes on the high notes, the way her left hand trembled slightly on the guitar neck, the way she poured everything she had into every word. He'd seen 1,000 performers. This was different. This was real. Maya hit the final chorus and let her voice crack on purpose, turning the imperfection into raw emotion. She held the last note until her lungs burned, then let it fade into silence. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then the audience exploded. People jumped to their feet. The judges looked stunned. Victoria's professional mask had slipped, revealing something almost human underneath. The scores came up: 9.2, 9.5, 9.4. Then Marcus held up his card. 10.0. Perfect. The audience erupted again. Maya stood frozen on stage, her guitar hanging from her shoulder, trying to process what had just happened. Marcus was still staring at her, and now there was something in his eyes that looked almost like pain. Backstage, Maya collapsed against the wall, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her guitar. She'd done it. She'd made it to the finals. One more performance, one more song. $50,000 and her mother's life. She pulled out her phone to call the hospital, but before she could dial, someone knocked on her dressing room door. "Come in," Maya called, expecting a stagehand or volunteer. The door opened. Marcus Cole stepped inside. He closed the door behind him and stood there for a moment, looking at her like he was seeing a ghost. "That song," he said finally. "You wrote it?" Maya nodded. "Yeah, about 6 months ago." Marcus walked closer, his movements careful, measured. "It's extraordinary. You're extraordinary. How long have you been performing?" Maya shrugged. "Street corners mostly. Subway stations. Anywhere people would listen and maybe drop some money. I needed to save up for the entry fee." She paused. "And for my mom's medical bills." Something shifted in Marcus's expression. "Your mother. She's sick?" Maya's throat tightened. She didn't usually talk about this, but something about the way he asked made her answer. "Cancer. Stage 3. She needs surgery, but we can't afford it. That's why I'm here. That's why I have to win." Marcus sat down in the chair across from her, his expression complicated. "Your mother. What's her name?" The question was strange, too personal, but Maya answered anyway. "Kaisha. Kaisha Johnson." Marcus went very still. The color drained from his face. His hands gripped the armrests of the chair so hard his knuckles turned white. Kaisha Johnson. Used to sing backup for small jazz clubs? Played piano? Maya stared at him. "How do you know that?" Marcus stood up abruptly, his breath coming faster. He looked at Maya, really looked at her, and she saw recognition dawn in his eyes. Painful, terrible recognition. What year were you born? Maya's heart started pounding. Why are you asking me this? Please. Marcus's voice cracked. What year? 2011. January 5th, 10th. Why does it matter? Marcus pressed his hand to his mouth. He walked to the small window, his back to Maya, his shoulders shaking. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. I knew your mother 13 years ago. We were together, and then she told me she was pregnant, and I ran. The room tilted. Maya grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. What are you saying? Marcus turned around, tears streaming down his face. I'm saying I'm your father. I'm saying I walked away from the best thing that ever happened to me because I was a coward who cared more about my career than the woman I loved and the child I didn't deserve. Maya couldn't breathe. This man, this stranger who defended her at registration, who'd given her a perfect score, this was her father, the father who'd abandoned them. You left us with nothing, Maya heard herself say. Mama worked 3 jobs. We lived in apartments with no heat. She got sick because she couldn't afford to see a doctor until it was too late. All because you walked away. I know, Marcus's voice broke. I know, and I'm so sorry. I've spent 13 years trying to become someone worthy of success, thinking if I just achieved enough, accomplished enough, it would justify the choice I made. But it never did. I just became successful and empty. He took a step toward her. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know that I'm going to fix this. I'm going to pay for your mother's surgery. I'm going to make sure you both have everything you need. Maya laughed, a harsh sound that had no humor in it. You think money fixes this? You think writing a check makes up for 13 years? No, Marcus said quietly, but it's a start. And if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I can be the father I should have been from the beginning. Maya wanted to scream at him. She wanted to tell him to leave, to go back to his successful life and stay out of hers. But she looked at his face, at the genuine remorse there, at the tears that wouldn't stop falling, and something in her chest cracked open. The finals are in 3 days, she said finally. I need to focus on that. After we'll talk. But don't expect me to call you Dad. You haven't earned that. Marcus nodded. I understand. I'll be there, in the audience. And Maya, no matter what happens in the competition, I promise you, your mother will get her surgery. He walked to the door, then paused. That guitar you're playing, it's the one I left behind, isn't it? Maya looked down at the battered instrument. Yeah, Mama gave it to me when I was 7. Said it belonged to someone who didn't know how to love. I guess she was right. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He left without another word. Maya sat alone in the dressing room, holding the guitar that connected her to a man she'd just met and hated and needed all at once. 3 days. She had 3 days to prepare for the performance of her life. The morning of the finals, Maya woke up to a package outside her dressing room. Inside was a new guitar, professional grade, probably worth more than her mother's car. The note was simple. Use this if you want, but the old one has soul. Your choice. Marcus. Maya stared at both guitars. The new one was beautiful, perfect, exactly what a serious musician should play. The old one was scarred, out of tune, a survivor. She picked up the old one. The finals were different from the preliminaries. Only 12 contestants remained, and the auditorium was packed with music industry professionals, talent scouts, and a camera crew from a national morning show. Maya was performing last, which meant she had to sit backstage for 3 hours listening to the other kids be brilliant. By the time her name was called, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold her guitar. She walked onto the stage. The lights were brighter than before, hotter. She could see faces in the audience now. Her mother was there, in a wheelchair in the front row, wearing the nicest dress she owned. Kaisha looked weak, tired, but her eyes were fierce with pride. Next to her sat Marcus, wearing a suit that probably cost a month's rent. His expression was a complicated mix of hope and terror. Maya stepped up to the microphone. "This is called Unfinished Song. I wrote it this week." She started playing, and this time the guitar didn't sound out of tune. It sounded earned. The melody was simple at first, almost a lullaby, the kind of song a mother might sing to a child. Then it shifted, became more complex, layered with pain and questions and anger. Maya sang about absence and presence, about the people who leave and the people who stay. She sang directly to Marcus. Every word was a confrontation, every note a question. Why did you leave? Why didn't you stay? Why wasn't I enough? The audience sat frozen, understanding they were witnessing something more than a performance. This was a daughter confronting a father in the only language that mattered to both of them, music. Marcus sat in the audience with tears streaming down his face, not bothering to wipe them away. He saw himself in every accusation, felt every word like a knife. The other judges looked uncomfortable, unsure if they should stop this. Victoria, surprisingly, shook her head slightly. Let her finish. Maya built to the final verse, and here the song changed again. The anger softened into something more complicated. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility. She sang about second chances, about the courage it takes to start over, about the long road back to trust.